to the Naked Label cooking segment. It's cold outside, and one of my favorite things to make in the wintertime is soup. And one of my favorite soups is butternut squash. I love it. Now, most of you know that I'm not a professional chef. I cook because I absolutely love it, and it's a hobby of mine. So one of the problems I have is deciphering all the measurements so that I can put it down on paper for all of you. So I figured today, instead of trying to figure all that out, what I'm going to do is have you watch me make my recipes. You'll see how I cook a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Bob's your uncle, we have soup. So join me in the kitchen, and I'll try and figure out how much I'm using of these different ingredients so that I can write out at least an estimate for you for the end of the show. Alright, so let's get started. These are some of the ingredients we're going to be using. It's pretty simple, there's not a lot of them. I've got 2 butternut squash, I've got 2 yams or sweet potatoes, I've got 2 onions, 3 carrots, and a stalk of celery, some parsley, and I've got some garlic here as well. We'll add some spices and things like that as I go, but this is going to make up the bulk of the soup. So, first thing we want to do is we're going to preheat our oven because we're going to be roasting the squash first. So, just turn it on bake and set it to about 375. Next, this is one of the hardest parts of the job, and usually I have to get my boyfriend Steve to do this. Really takes some muscles, but we're just going to cut the squash in half. There, it's like I don't even need to go to the gym. Squash soup, perfect. Look at that, excellent color. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we're just going to scoop out the seeds. Okay, so now we've got our 2 squash, we've got them cut open, and we've got them de-seeded. So now what we want to do is we want to roast them in the oven. And the best way that I found to do this is to take a cookie sheet, or if you have a baking pan that's big enough, I don't, so I'm going to use a cookie sheet, but you just put some water in the bottom and put them face down. And then that water helps to make sure that they don't dry out too much. Okay. And then we're just going to take them and we're going to put them face down. And it looks like our oven is preheated, so we'll just open this up here and put in. While I've got that roasting, I'm going to start with the rest of the soup. And to do that, I'm going to make a vegetable broth. And you can buy vegetable broth, but I find when you buy it, unless you get a really good brand, there's often a lot of preservatives and things like that in it. And sometimes when you do get a good brand, it's really expensive. So I might substitute and put a little bit of vegetable broth in, like an organic vegetable broth that I've bought. But I also just use a substantial amount of water and try and flavor that with some of my other vegetables. Now, I buy my garlic already out of cloves, and then I just keep it in some water so that it doesn't go moldy. And I eat a lot of garlic, so I find that this is the easiest way to do it. Little tip. So in here, I'm just going to take, a handful of garlic cloves. I'm at 12 cloves here, okay? So when I said I like garlic, it wasn't exaggerating. Okay, so I'm going to put my garlic here, and I'm going to put it in 2 different piles. And I'm going to introduce you guys to one of my favorite kitchen tools. One endorsement for this company because I think they're amazing. So this is a slap chop. I see infomercials all the time, and I really don't buy into them, but this thing is honestly fantastic. So all you do is you put a bunch of garlic in there. How easy is this? Give it a few slaps, just like the guy in that commercial says. Alright, and we've got chopped garlic. How easy is that? It's amazing. We're going to turn it on medium heat. Use some olive oil. So, let me see, measurement-wise, how much is that? 2 tablespoons, maybe? Children, bad at measurements. What I'm going to do is the onion. do actually is cut them into fairly large chunks. Now looks like my olive oil is heated up here, so I'm going to throw in garlic.
I will add the chopped carrots. You can peel these if you want, but I choose not to because I try and make this as easy as possible. I'm just going to cut the celery into 2 pieces and throw it in the pot to help flavor the vegetable broth, but we'll be fishing these pieces out later. The last main ingredient is the sweet potatoes. I've chosen not to peel them to keep it simple.
I'm going to add water because this is what's going to help to make our vegetable broth. So that was 12 cups of water. I'm going to turn up the temperature to high so that we can bring this to a boil. When I add spices to things, I never measure anything. I don't even measure when there is a recipe. And I just sort of add whatever I'm feeling like that day. And I encourage you to do the same and really just experiment, go wild. What am I feeling today? I'm going to add some nutmeg. And the thing with spices, okay, so what was that? 12 shakes, probably a teaspoon and a bit, teaspoon and a half. The thing with spices is what you want to do if you're just starting to experiment with using them without measurements is don't add too much because you can always add more you can't take away. Now I'm also going to add a little bit of pepper. What is this? 10 shakes. And let's see what else. A little bit of salt. Some oregano. I love the flavor of oregano. I'm going to bring this to a boil and then we're going to let it simmer. Okay, our squash has been in there for about 30, 35 minutes. And I'm going to take it out and we're going to let it cool. Amazing! It smells so good too. We're going to let this simmer for a little bit more. We're going to let these cool for a few minutes and then we'll be able to scoop out the innards and throw them into our soup. So now it's time to peel our squash. And I'm a big wimp, so I'm actually going to use my kitchen dishwashing glove. This is going to make it a lot easier for me to handle this still quite warm squash. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get the spoon here, and we need to remove the skin of this. And throw it into our pot. Let's add that parsley that's been sitting here just waiting to dive into that soup. We're going to find that celery that we put in earlier and we're going to take out those 2 pieces because they're not going to get blended into our final soup. The last thing that we need to do is we need to blend it. I'm using a hand blender, but feel free to use regular counter blender as well. Now that I've got it blended up, I'm just going to taste it.
Make adjustments based on your taste buds. For me, I've tasted this and I think I'm going to add a little bit more pepper, salt, nutmeg, and some cinnamon.
Now I'll just stir that up. Serve up a couple scoops in each bowl. A little bit of parsley on top. And we're ready to go. Thanks for joining me at The Naked Label. We'll see you next time.
This recipe makes a ton of soup, but you can always save some for leftovers. Yummy!